So very recently, I was talking to this elderly man. He's a recently diagnosed diabetic patient, and this pa was very convinced that he did not have diabetes. And it's true, I understand. You know, having such a diagnosis like diabetes, that is basically going to change the course of the rest of your life. It's very, very understandable for a patient to have an initial resistance to such a diagnosis. You know, and it's perfectly understood. My only problem is the pa was convinced he did not have diabetes because he did not eat sugar. And this is false because not eating sugar will definitely not give you diabetes or give you diabetes. It's not actually related. Diabetes basically is caused by two mechanisms, right? Largely, by and large, you can either have a deficiency in the production of insulin in your body or a resistance of your body to utilize the insulin that is being produced to convert glucose to other forms of energy. So what does this basically mean? Insulin is a hormone that your body uses to convert excess glucose in your blood to maybe proteins or fats, and so that this energy can be stored, so that later on when you actually need this energy, it will be converted back to glucose so that you can use to produce energy. So when there's excess glucose in your blood, your body is basically stimulated to produce insulin every time. Now, in people that have diabetes, this mechanism is kind of faulty. Sometimes there's not enough insulin being produced, and so this glucose goes on in your blood, which can lead to symptoms of diabetes like maybe peeing a lot, having body weakness, and all those things that you already know about. Or sometimes you can actually produce enough insulin, but then your cells do not basically recognize this insulin, and therefore they will not utilize it to convert the glucose into different forms which are being used by your body cells, which will not work. So this pa being convinced that he did not have diabetes simply because he did not consume any sugar was actually false. And this is a common misconception in our population actually, that maybe consuming very little sugar or consuming no sugar at all is going to somehow prevent you from developing diabetes, which is false. Now, what consuming sugars will do to you is basically, if you're already diabetic, consuming a lot of sugars will basically make your diabetic management difficult, because they will cause spikes in your blood sugars because you do not basically have insulin, or maybe the insulin is too resistant to work for you, and so these sugars are not going to get converted, and therefore you're going to develop maybe short-term complications of diabetes or maybe long-term complications of diabetes. But that consuming sugar in itself gives you diabetes is not correct. That is actually false.